Good morning. I've been thinking a little bit about power, largely because I've been reading a novel, a crime detective novel by Michael Connolly, part of the Lincoln Lawyer series that he writes, along with Detective Bosch. The Lincoln Lawyer is so named because he drove a Lincoln town car and used that as his mobile office. Mickey Haller, the Lincoln Lawyer, is now moved from criminal defence to civil law, trying to right some of the wrongs of society and defend and protect the weak and those who have been unjustly treated, looking for the big case to make the world a better place. And he's representing two families whose children have been victims of an IT firm's app, an artificial intelligence based app that has actually drawn them in as impressionable youngsters, teenagers. One is dead and one is in a mental institution. And families want to bring not only charges against this company, but get them to change what they're doing, change these apps, make them safer for the whole community. It's Mickey and his small team up against this big corporation. And they have millions and millions of dollars, particularly when there's $1 billion takeover on the table, or potentially. It's big money, and they want this case to go away. They don't want this in the headlines, they just want it silenced. And so they're willing to throw money, and they throw millions and millions of dollars. The final offer that the company made the families is $50 million to be shared however they like between the two families. They can do whatever they like with it. They can set up funds, they can do whatever, but there'll be a non-disclosure agreement. So they can't say anything outside that settlement about the company or the products or anything else. Silence. So they're buying the family's silence. And they're saying, no, it's not just about the money, it's about making a statement so that they take it to court. But the company isn't finished. They bring in some heavy-handed blokes to intimidate witnesses. One actually commits suicide before the case is even brought to court. The other one is threatening to withdraw from giving testimony because she's afraid. She's been intimidated and threatened and warned off, both her and her daughter. Strongman tactics. This is the nature of power we often see in the world around us, where power is about domination, it's about physical strength, it's about violence, it's about wealth and using wealth to get our own way. It's about the accumulation of wealth and power and authority and so on in the hands of a few to control other people. We see it every day on our news feeds and on the news. The US president, for example, Mr. Trump, is forever using rhetoric and practices, using his authority and his powers to challenge what he doesn't like, to throw people he doesn't like, people of other ethnic origin, migrants and so forth, either into detention or to deport them, to close down groups and support for those who are minority groups and people who need help that he doesn't think deserve it. He's on the media with his waging rhetoric against, particularly at the moment, Iran. And I don't want to defend Iran because they come back at him. And between them, they're throwing bombs and missiles and destroying people and property and creating chaos, a reign of terror. But it's not just Mr. Trump and Iran. President Putin is, if you get offside with him, you can end up in detention somewhere in Siberia and disappear. He will have you killed, poisoned, murdered, blown up. He's waged war in Ukraine because he wants that country. His reign of terror knows no ends. His wealth and his power are used to dominate and control and oppress and keep people in their place. Likewise, other countries, North Korea, for example, right through the Middle East, There's the use of violence and power and force and bombs and missiles and guns and tanks and all sorts of things to destroy people, to suppress people, to oppress, to drive them out, to create what those in power want to happen. We see this sort of power often in our streets, in schools where people fight and dominate and where there's a pecking order. It's played out in homes, and we see the results on the news. Mainly men, but occasionally women, who dominate through violence, rhetorical, psychological and physical violence over partner and children and so on. This kind of power over other people, this kind of power that uses force, violence, might, whether it's military might or other forms of might, or the use of wealth to buy off authorities, councils and governments and politicians, or power, money to buy legal teams that can roll over weaker opponents and get what they want. It's this kind of power we see in our world that is dangerous. It's what many people choose to take up. It's seen as the answer, that when a problem exists in the world, when there's conflict, we bring in this kind of dominating, violent power. The more wealth we have, the more bombs and guns we can buy or build, the more armies we can gather, and we'll win. But no one ever wins, because there's loss of life, ordinary people who are killed. There's a world of chaos where innocent people are victims, and the fighting never ends because it just spirals around. There may be times where it's lessened, but then it flares up again. There's other kinds of power in the world though, and there's one in particular that is called a force more powerful. It's a power that is often seen as gentle and soft and irrelevant. It's the power that we saw in someone like Jesus, who went around and lifted up the lowly, healed the sick, embraced the outcast into this community of God's love, reached out to people in all sorts of ways and brought them together, lifted them up so there's equality and they belong and they have a place and they have what they need. And people saw that as weak and intimidating. In fact, the authorities of his own nation, and ultimately Rome, were actually overwhelmed by it and threatened by it, and so they had him killed. They thought that using their violence, their forms of power, could destroy him and end the movement that he was leading. Well, it did for a bit, except this experience of resurrection, this notion of resurrection that is mysterious, but obviously very real in the lives of those first disciples who experienced this mystery in profound ways. This mystery of this risen Christ meeting them in whatever way it was, and then disappearing back into the heavenly realm of God. All of this talk, this story that Luke tells, is used in different kinds of language, and it's confusing. But he then comes to the point that Jesus has promised. When I'm not with you anymore, I will send the Spirit of God. And this Spirit who was there at the birth of creation, this Spirit who is creativity and love, and will guide and comfort and strengthen you. And he tells this story, and he uses a whole lot of symbols and elements of something like flames, like fire, like something that sounded like wind blowing through. Echoes of the Old Testament theophanies where God was revealed and present. There's lightning and thunder and clouds and mystery that hides this presence of God that we can't describe or comprehend. And in this experience, the disciples who have been waiting, praying and worshipping and hiding away from the world in many ways, not sure what to make of it, are filled with this new sense of power. It's a power that is grounded in love, and this love casts out the fear that they felt. And so they stand up on this day and they proclaim in all the languages of the world their witness to the living Christ, the one who has come, the one who is real, who is with them, the one who is guiding them. And they seem to be bold and brassy and not afraid of the authorities anymore, because this Christ is with them. And no matter what happens to them, nothing can take away this love, this grace of God, who will hold them now and into eternity. It's this hope that they proclaim. They proclaim in the world, and it's confusing, but it's also unsettling, but it's also inspiring and draws people in. And some come in and they want a part of this movement. They are moved. They see these disciples, their passion, the inspiration, their who they are, and they want to be part of it, and they follow. And this movement has moved out of first century Palestine and Jerusalem into the whole world. And it's this movement of God's Spirit we see at work in our lives and in our world, in those positive places where people come together with all their differences and learn to talk and share and seek what is best in one another and bring that to the table. It's seen in people like Martin Luther King Jr., who led that civil rights movement and was very clear with all of the people involved and said, we do not hate our enemies. We love our enemies and we pray for them. But we don't love the evil they do. We resist that. We won't resist it with violence, but we will resist it. We will resist it with love, we will resist it with persistence, and we will not stand for it. And we'll do this together. And some of us will suffer. Some will be in prison, some will be beaten, some will die. And he himself was martyred. But we will win because God is with us. And this movement of the Spirit is with us and will sustain us. The Spirit of God that will be within the people and rise them up and give them new life and help them in the fight for justice and freedom and peace. And it's these fights for justice and freedom and peace grounded in non-violent love, in loving neighbour and caring and sharing, but resisting evil, that is the way of this Christ and the way of the Spirit and what Pentecost is about. And right now, as I stand in this church, next door there are a couple of hundred people, a few hundred people coming for lunch. And they're people from all faiths and backgrounds, people who are hungry, who want a place to belong, who need a hand up. And they're welcome. They're welcomed into that place and they'll eat and share. And on the wall there's a sign that says dignity, faith, grace, inclusion. There's another sign, hope and love and faith. And that's what it's all about. And Paul, who leads them, he will be in this church in the morning to pray and at night. Not all the volunteers, not all the people who serve, not all the people who work there are a Christian. But when they reach out in love, God is there. When they reach out to one another, when they include people, God is there. And that's the work of the Spirit. And the work of the Spirit gets in and changes all of us. And it's this power, this force of God's love in the world that we celebrate at Pentecost, but also is what we live into in our own lives, that we might help the world become more fully and truly what it can be. We can do this together in the strength of God, whose Spirit is with us, now and always. Amen.